on a routine drive, a highway commute, maybe a trip across town. And then all of a sudden, the rhythm just breaks. That flash of red ahead, the sudden lurch, and you realize that a moment ago you were cruising at 60, and now you are officially in a defensive driving scenario.
And that's it. Traffic has just slammed on the brakes.
I know.
It's probably the most high-stakes yet common driving event we face. It's an instantaneous test of, your vigilance.
Right.
The difference between navigating it safely and becoming a victim or, the cause of a pileup really just comes down to how quickly you can process all that information.
Exactly. So this deep dive is custom tailored for you, the learner, to move far beyond just knowing how to brake. We've synthesized a stack of sources that don't just cover immediate defensive maneuvers, but also explore the systemic why.
The bigger picture.
The bigger picture. Yeah. Why does congestion happen so unpredictably? What are the legal consequences of driving too slow? And how are urban planners using design, not just rules, to fundamentally manage vehicle speed?
Our mission here is kind of twofold. We're equipping you with those vital, immediate defensive actions for unexpected slowdowns, but then we're zooming out. We want to provide the critical context of, say, traffic flow engineering and urban design.
Right.
We'll unpack the surprising secondary risks hidden inside stop-and-go traffic, and then we'll dive deep into specific solutions that are reshaping our environment, things like the function of a road diet and the geometry of a chicane.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting where the danger really starts. The immediate threat of a sudden slowdown. The core risk, and I mean every source emphasizes this, is the rear-end collision.
And it's almost always caused by that sudden or unexpected drop in velocity.
Right.
And this is where the human failure point lies. A car doesn't brake in a vacuum. Prevention requires seeing beyond just the car immediately in front of you.
Yeah.
You have to maintain a safe following distance, obviously. But more importantly, you need to practice looking maybe 3 or 4 cars ahead. You have to look for that ripple effect of brake lights. That's your early warning system.
That concept of looking ahead is just so powerful. You're reacting to the flow, not just the single object in front of you.
Yes.
And we can't overlook the simple action of signaling your intent early. When traffic slows down abruptly, hitting your brakes is essential. But if you can flash a quick signal...
Like tapping your hazards.
Exactly. Yeah. Even a tap of the hazard lights, if you are truly stopping on a high-speed road, you alert the cars behind you significantly sooner than your brake lights alone might.
And that can prevent the whole domino effect.
It can.
That proactive signaling is just crucial. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because the risks multiply as the speed drops. Slow traffic doesn't just mean rear ends. It fosters this whole cascade of secondary dangers.
Okay.
And we first see the rise of let's call it the desperate, often self-defeating driver, the one who starts weaving.
Oh, I know this person.
Yeah.
The person who believes that by crossing 3 lanes, they'll somehow shave 10 minutes off their commute.
Precisely. They are acting on impatience. And that aggressive lane changing in slow traffic is a primary cause of sideswipe collisions. When you're creeping along, people become complacent about checking their mirrors, their blind spots, and suddenly they're cutting off a car they didn't even see. The synthesized advice from all our sources is nearly universal on this. Once traffic slows, pick a lane and commit to it. Rely on patience, not physics, to get you through.
And that's compounded by the exhausting nature of stop-and-go driving. It's physically and mentally draining, which leads to stop-and-go fatigue. That constant acceleration and braking increases the likelihood of those minor fender benders. But the mental stress is the real danger, I think, because it just degrades your reaction time.
And fatigue is basically an open door for driver distraction. Our research shows that slow or stop traffic often creates boredom. And that leads drivers to, engage with their mobile phones, the entertainment controls, maybe they're eating. This distraction means that when traffic finally does start moving again, or worse, stops again, their delayed reaction is going to be significantly longer than it should be.
And when you're in urban congestion, that delayed reaction is even more critical, because then you introduce the vulnerability of pedestrians and cyclists.
Absolutely. In city centers, people often feel, safe moving between slow vehicles. And if drivers are distracted or frustrated, they might miss a cyclist suddenly using a gap between stopped cars.
Or a pedestrian jaywalking.
Or a pedestrian jaywalking outside of an official crossing. Vigilance is just non-negotiable in dense areas. You have to assume vulnerable road users are present and then yield accordingly.
Which brings us to the aggression factor. Congestion is basically the source code for road rage.
It really is. Tailgating, cutting others off, honking excessively, These behaviors don't just create tension, they directly increase collision risk. That need to teach someone a lesson just overrides basic safety. It's the antithesis of the patience that's required in a slowdown. The key takeaway from the behavioral science here is not just to avoid confrontation, but to manage your own internal frustration. You have to treat traffic like a waiting room, not a race.
Understanding those immediate dangers is so vital. But that leads us naturally to the systemic forces at play. We have to shift our focus and ask, why does traffic jam up so unpredictably in the first place?
Well, beyond the obvious high traffic volume during peak hours, most traffic slowdowns can be traced back to two major categories: incidents and road characteristics.
Incidents are pretty straightforward. Accidents, collisions, vehicle breakdowns, they inherently block capacity. What's often overlooked, I think, is the impact of the response.
Yes.
The emergency vehicles, the cleanup crews, the tow trucks, which can exacerbate the bottleneck long after the initial crash is cleared.
And the road features themselves are often the issue. We're talking about predictable bottlenecks like construction zones, merging traffic, or even just the gradient of the road sharp curves or steep hills that force speed reductions.
Those are the predictable geometric limitations.
Oh, exactly.
But the truly fascinating part is the human element, the element that creates congestion that shouldn't even exist. It's what physicists call the phantom traffic jam.
Yes, and two specific driver behaviors really fuel this phantom congestion. The first is what we call rubbernecking.
Right.
Drivers slow down significantly, sometimes to a complete crawl, just to look at an accident or some activity on the side of the road. That sudden, seemingly minor slowdown by one person creates a shockwave.
And that shockwave is the entire problem.
Yeah.
It's not just one person slowing down. It forces the person behind them to slow down even more abruptly. And that ripple effect just magnifies. A single car slowing from 70 to 50 miles per hour to look at a construction site can cause traffic to stop completely miles down the road.
It's the fundamental inefficiency of human reaction time. And the second behavior is the overly cautious driver. Someone driving significantly below the ambient speed, maybe they're inexperienced, maybe they're looking for an exit, who then acts as a permanent brake pedal for everyone behind them, forcing frequent, unnecessary braking.
So how do we mitigate this inefficient human behavior systemically?
Well, we turn to technology that optimizes flow. We mentioned traffic signal timing, but modern cities are moving toward really sophisticated solutions. Think about adaptive traffic control systems.
Okay.
These aren't just lights operating on a fixed timer. They use sensors, cameras, and real-time data to measure traffic volume and flow in every direction.
So they're changing the light timings dynamically
To optimize movement and clear backlogs as they happen.
So instead of being stuck at a red light for 2 minutes when no one is crossing, the light detects that the major flow is coming from one direction and shortens the wait time immediately.
Exactly. It uses data to try and flatten out those surges and keep the volume constant, which minimizes the stop-start nature that causes those phantom jams.
That context of flow and efficiency leads us straight into the rules of the road designed to manage speed differentials.
Yeah.
We really need to talk about lane discipline, specifically the Keep Right mandate.
This rule is perhaps the most misunderstood element of road safety. It's not a polite suggestion. It is absolutely critical for system efficiency and for accident reduction.
So why is it so crucial for efficiency?
Because it segregates traffic by speed differential. When slower vehicles stay to the right, the left lanes are then dedicated to passing or just higher speeds.
Right.
If a slow vehicle camps in the left lane, they force everyone behind them to slow down and then execute a dangerous, often high-speed lane change to the right to get around them, which is extremely disruptive to the flow.
And that disruption, by forcing sudden lane changes, that's where the safety benefit comes in, isn't it? It reduces the risk of collisions caused by these radical differences in velocity across lanes.
Yeah, when everyone adheres to keep right, the environment becomes incredibly predictable.
All predictability is safety.
Exactly. And this leads us to the surprising lethal dimension of speed. We focus constantly on the maximum speed limit, but what about the minimum?
This is where we get into the crux of it. The legality of driving too slowly. Is driving below the posted limit actually illegal?
Yes, it absolutely can be. First, there are statutory minimum speed limits posted on many controlled access highways, usually 40 or 45 miles per hour. If you're below that, you are clearly in violation.
Okay.
But more common, and I think more relevant to most drivers, is the law against impeding the normal flow of traffic.
How is impeding the normal flow defined, legally speaking? Is it just subjective, based on a police officer's view?
It's defined by the hazard you create. You can be driving well above the minimum posted speed limit, say 55 in a 65 zone, but if the surrounding traffic is consistently moving at 70, you are impeding the normal and reasonable flow.
So the law recognizes that a large speed differential, whether too fast or too slow, is a massive hazard.
Precisely. The key isn't the number on the sign, but the safety of the collective movement.
So if I'm forcing dozens of cars to brake hard or swerve dangerously, that's where the infraction lies, even if my speedometer is technically legal for that zone.
That's it exactly. You are creating a traffic bottleneck and forcing others into unsafe maneuvers. The best practice for drivers who must go slow, maybe due to a heavy load or poor weather or vehicle limitations, is to constantly monitor their impact. Stay firmly in the rightmost lane.
And what if it's unavoidable?
If you are unavoidably going slow because of an issue, the responsible action is to use your hazard lights. Clearly signal that you are operating outside of normal flow expectations.
That makes the connection between individual choice and systemic safety extremely clear. But if congestion and speed variability are systemic problems, it suggests the ultimate solutions must be systemic too. We've talked about technology, but now let's explore how cities are changing the physical layout of the road itself through traffic calming.
Traffic calming is a paradigm shift. It moves away from relying solely on enforcement or signs to control speed.
Right.
And instead, it uses design to fundamentally alter driver behavior and prioritize safety for vulnerable users.
How do the sources define this? It's simply using strategies and physical features to reduce speeds and improve safety in urban and residential areas, making the environment itself conducive to low speeds.
And the specific measures are highly visible when you know what to look for. Let's start with the physical alterations that force a change in velocity. Everyone knows speed humps and bumps.
Sure.
But consider raised crosswalks. They serve two functions: protecting the pedestrian by elevating them to curb height, and at the same time forcing the vehicle to slow down substantially. They act as a speed bump themselves.
I find the measures that force changes in alignment particularly fascinating. The chicane, for instance.
A chicane is brilliant because it introduces a horizontal deflection, a curve, or a zigzag where the road was previously straight. You physically cannot take that section at 45 miles per hour without feeling uncomfortable or losing control.
So it forces an intuitive speed reduction.
To maybe 15 or 20 miles per hour, yeah.
And the road diet is a prime example of systemic change, reallocating that space.
A road diet takes a street with, say, 4 vehicle lanes, 2 in each direction, and reduces it to 3 one-lane in each direction and a shared center turn lane.
And what happens to that extra space?
That space gained is then reallocated to bike lanes, wider sidewalks, or landscaping. This visual narrowing inherently lowers travel speed, and the reduced capacity discourages high-speed travel through neighborhoods.
And beyond these physical structures, they also use visual and psychological measures, right?
Yes, these are the subtle cues. Landscaping, trees planted close to the curb, or pavement markings that visually narrow the road all trigger a subconscious response in the driver that they are in a high-density, low-speed environment.
And you should also look for gateway treatments.
Yes. How would you define a gateway treatment for the listener?
Well, it's an architectural or landscape feature that's placed at the entrance to a neighborhood or a commercial district. It might be brick paving, signage arches, substantial median islands.
Right, things that signal a clear transition.
Exactly. It says, you are leaving the arterial road and entering a community space. Adjust your speed and vigilance accordingly. It's an immediate psychological reset.
So when we synthesize all this, what are the overarching benefits of traffic calming for the community? It seems like it's about so much more than just avoiding accidents.
Oh, it definitely goes deeper. The safety wins are paramount. We see measurable reductions in both the frequency and the severity of accidents, especially those involving vulnerable road users.
If you hit a pedestrian at 20 miles per hour, their chance of survival is dramatically higher than at 40.
And the quality of life returns are huge. Quieter neighborhoods, reduced pollution from less aggressive acceleration and braking, and a direct encouragement of active transportation.
People are more likely to walk or cycle when they feel safe doing so.
Yeah.
Which then feeds into the economic benefits. Safer, more pedestrian-friendly streets mean increased foot traffic for local businesses, and over the long term, reducing accident costs, medical, property damage. Insurance provides significant financial savings to the community. Traffic calming is really an investment in public health and economic vitality, not just vehicle safety.
So what does this all mean? When we bring it back to your daily commute, mastering safe driving and unexpected slowdowns requires personal, constant vigilance, checking your blind spots, signaling early, managing your frustration. but you are also operating within this massive, complex system of systemic designs, legal mandates, and urban planning choices intended to govern the flow.
The sources really reinforce that safety isn't merely about individual defensive driving skills. It's about upholding a necessary social contract on the road.
Like the keep right rule.
Exactly, like the keep right rule, and recognizing that our movement affects the predictability and safety of everyone else. And that should lead to support for these design changes that make our streets inherently safer.
We've established that driving too slowly can be illegal because it severely disrupts predictability and forces other drivers into dangerous, abrupt maneuvers. So if predictability is the foundational key to safety, this raises an important question for you, the learner. We talked about minimum speed limits, but what responsibility does a driver have to adjust their perfectly legal speed if they observe that the overall flow of traffic is significantly faster than they are traveling? What stands out to you about the delicate balance between individual speed choice and community safety within that dynamic system?
Please like, subscribe, and get notified.